it's your girl Judy, and thank you for joining me with another episode of Thank God I'm Still Growing. How are you? I hope you're doing well. And if you're not, I send you my love, I send you my good vibrations, and I hope that you feel better soon. So today's topic is on love or fear. Which one are you operating out of? Are you operating out of love or something less than love, which is fear? Now, there is a general accepted theory by most spiritual teachers that there is only two emotions that we express. We're either expressing love in everything that we do, or we're expressing fear. Okay, so love is the only energy in which God, the universe, your higher power lives. It only operates out of love. So then you might wonder now, so if that's what the case is, then where does fear come from? And what is the thought of fear? Now, fear is developed out of your ego. And so your ego says that you are separated from God. So God is over here, and your ego is over here in fear, telling you that in order for you to have love and have God's energy, God's power in your life, you need to be able to have someone or something in the middle to combine you, because you're separated. And so because you're separated from God, and you need someone or something else in order to bring you together, you are inferior and you are inadequate. And so all the emotions that you're expressing, you're trying to get to love, but you're entangled into fear. Okay, and so you would say, well, if you're created out of love and God creates you out of love, wherever your circumstances is, or whatever your circumstances was when you were created, when you were born, when you were conceived, that was done out of love. And so where does the fear come from? How does the ego tell you that you're inferior? Well, what we now have to look at is your childhood, because when you're born out of love and you come into this world, you, as a child, a baby basically that cannot do anything for yourself, you forget that you're created out of love. And so you're depending on your parents or whoever your caregivers are to be able to love you, protect you, and teach you self-love, so that when you have self-love and realize that God is inside of you already, then you can now give love to the rest of the world. But unfortunately, a lot of us, were brought up in circumstances where the situation just didn't allow for that, because a lot of time our parents just didn't have that knowledge, didn't have that for themselves in order to give it to you. And so once you become an adult, it's your responsibility to now have a look at yourself and see, where am I operating out of? Am I really wanting the best for the people in my life? Or better yet, before you even look at anyone else, do you have that self-love, or are you really operating out of fear? Are you just trying to get things done because it has to be done, rather than you're actually trying to benefit yourself and benefit the people in your life? I'll tell you a story. I remember that a great deal of my life, until I was in my young adulthood, I lived in fear. And I operated out of fear. I was afraid of myself, my own abilities. I was afraid of doing things, achieving things for myself. I was afraid constantly that I would fail, right? And so because I was afraid to fail, I fail a lot, right? And I had to actually go back in my past and meet with people that had done things to me. And, be able to have the conversation and said, well, you know, when you did this, this is what it felt like to me, and this is what I use that information, or how I use that information in my life. Okay, so I'll tell you one incident in my childhood that imprinted on my life greatly. That particular act occurred several years. And you might listen to it and think, oh, that's not such a big deal. But you have to remember, as a child, whatever you feel, whatever you think is happening, whatever you... whatever information you take, and you take it in a negative way and you connect it with yourself, it really digs deep. It digs deep into your soul, and it becomes who you are. Because remember, you're born as a blank slate, and so you're taught, you know, this is who I am, and this is who I'm not. And because this is who I am, this is what I can do, and because this is who I'm not, I can't do certain things, right? And what happens is that you really have to reteach yourself what is right and what is wrong, and get help if you need to, and do the work, because you actually have to do work. You can't just, you know, pray about it or understand that this happens. You have to do work to fix that, right? Because it's really imprinted on who you are. So the particular one of the incident that I'm remembering right now is when I was a child. I would say 7 years old or so. My church used to have a cantata, a concert every single Christmas. And in the community that I lived in, the Christmas concert was a huge event. People who didn't go to church at all, who hung out at the bar, would be going to church this particular day. People who went to church maybe just once a year or on special occasion would be in church. And so all the children would be in church, and all the children would be performing. And of course, everyone in the community would show up for this event. And so during the program, the children would do different, perform different activities. So they would dance, they would sing, they would play instrument. And then there was one big performance at the end of the evening that was the finale of the program. And so it was exciting for the children, and it was exciting for the parents, because for the parents it was more like a party. And for the children, it was, this is our chance to show off how wonderful we are, how well we've learned the information, and perform these songs and what have you. So what this particular performance involved is that all the children would be on stage singing. And so this stage would be packed of children. And the church would be packed of people. There would be so much people in the church that there would be people sitting on the windowsill, right? People hanging out of the window. There would be people sitting on the grass outside of the church because they couldn't get in. And all the windows and the doors and everything would be open, and, everyone would be listening and looking and just enjoying themselves. And so the children would be on stage singing, and there was one song that they would sing. And the idea is that they would sing that song over and over and over. Children would all sing the song together the first time. And after the first time of singing it, the conductor would stop and say, okay, now, these, your children were fantastic. They were God's blessing, and so who wants to pay, let's say, $200, to get your child off the stage? Honestly, they did this. And those in the community who had the money would be able to say, well, yeah, I'm going to pay $200 for my child. And so all the children again would start singing. And they would sing the song a second time. And after that time, the conductor would stop again and he would say, who wants to pay $190 to get your child off the stage? Right? To show how wonderful your child is. So those again who had the 190 would pay to get their child off the stage. And so the children would sing it another time. And so he would just keep going down, right? And who would pay $170, $160 to show how wonderful your child is, to show how great your child was singing? Who would pay $50? Who would pay $40? And I remember being on stage and being one of the few child left on stage singing. And it would start off with all the children singing, and the voices would just soar. It was just beautiful. There was just, and it's just now a few kids, 2 or 3 left on stage, and there is nobody there that's paying to get us off stage, right? And the fear would start building up inside of you. And now you're singing, but you're singing with a little quaker in your voice. You're singing with the nerves all tied up in your stomach. And you're looking out and you're thinking to yourself, I am looking out and thinking to myself, who's going to pay to get me off the stage? And I remember a few times, the only times that I was paid to be taken off the stage was when my aunt would come and she would pay what she had to get us off the stage. It was me and my siblings sometimes, and sometimes it would just be me and other, neighborhood children whose parents couldn't afford to get them off the stage. And so we would be there singing, and you would just feel the shame. You'd feel a shame in the room, right? Because the church was trying to make its money, and the people were trying to be entertained, and nobody was thinking about the impression that this was leaving on the children. And I remember that feeling. I remember that every time I think of that story, I remember that feeling. And I remember being sometimes, there was just no money to get me off the stage. And so what would happen is that the conductor would just say, okay, this is the last song, go and sit down, right? And so what that did to me in the early part of my life, when I was a young adult, trying to figure out what's going on with me. Why is it that I don't have the best intent for myself? That I don't love myself as I should? That I don't work as hard as I should for myself? That I'm fearful? That I'm so fearful of achieving, fearful of failure? Because this fear makes absolutely no sense, right? Because it's not who you are, but you're taught as a child that that's who you are. You're inadequate. You're not important. Because if you're important, you would have been one of those children that was paid for earlier or paid for at all, right? And what this did to me is that I had to, in my early adult years, I had to get some help to deal with it. I had to talk to people, and I had to do the research and figure out what was going on, because it wasn't always clear to me what was going on. And I had to go back and talk to parents that wasn't there. They weren't there, and express to them, you not being there, how that had affected me. and how I took that, you know. And of course, that's not what they meant to cause you, because they all, you know, they had their own issues. But if you don't deal with the situation, if you don't deal with the fear that is inside of you, that's causing you to do the things that you do, then you're blocking the love. You're blocking the love for yourself, the love that you have for yourself. Because as I said earlier, you're born with that love. You're born out of that love. You're created out of that. And so what I just want to leave with you is, if you find that you're acting out of anything but love, if you're feeling fearful, if you're feeling anger, if that's what you're expressing to other people, then that's what you're feeling inside. And you're feeling that way because there's something not right with you. If you're not loving yourself, if you don't think that you are the bum, that you are the everything to this universe, the everything. Honestly, you should be everything to yourself. The most gorgeous, the most handsome, the most intelligent, the funniest. If you aren't all of that to yourself, one of two things. Find out why you don't feel that way. And if it's something that you can change, then change it. And if it's something that is more difficult than you think, then get some help. Because you were born out of love, you are love, you have it inside, so much inside for yourself, and abundant to love other people too. I hope you find your way. I send you my love. I